Hello, we are back with another episode of the Super Intelligent Podcast. I am Emily Forlini, and Mike Elgin is here. I have collected him from the Italian hills. He's been drinking Prosecco, but we are back, and we're going to talk about what the heck is going on in the tech world. What's up, Mike?
Everything's great. I have, in fact, been in the hills of Prosecco, and I came to this podcast today to find out exactly what has been happening, because I have no idea. I've just been in completely a sort of blackout in terms of social media news and all the rest. I haven't the slightest idea what's going on, and I rely on you, as do so many of our listeners and viewers, to find out what's going on. So what is going on?
All right. So the main thing in my world was just that Sora 2 video release. Do you know about that? Sora being OpenAI's video generator.
I know about... Yeah, that's actually one of the things I do know about, because I actually had to take a few hours midweek to write a column, and I wrote it about a topic that included the sort of the TikTok, the fake TikTok that they associated with Sora 2.
Yes.
So I know about that, and I know about literally nothing else.
I think that, to me, that was the main thing. I think the Amazon event might have been this week that I attended. Yeah, that was on Tuesday. Amazon launched a bunch of new devices, and it was good. Like last year, all they talked about was Alexa Plus. Last year was just when AI, they were starting to make products out of AI, but they couldn't do it yet. So just Apple did Apple Intelligence, Alexa did Alexa Plus, and neither of them were successful over the past year. So now Apple at their events is starting to talk about other products, and Amazon at this event just launched a ton of hardware, like new Ring doorbells, new like cameras, new Echoes, new, I don't know what, it was like definitely over 10.
Glasses,
maybe.
Perchance? Did they launch glasses?
No. So Amazon launched a bunch of stuff that is available now that people can buy if you want a new Echo. I think it was a pretty slow week. I actually published a long form article that was consuming my thoughts, so that wasn't very newsy. But I did see over the weekend it was included in a list of best long form by some experienced journalists. So I was happy to see that.
Wow, nice. Nice. I look forward to reading it.
The journalism gods, like experienced people who run a newsletter about long form. And I was like, all right, good. If PC Mag can be known for that, like, let's go. That'd be good.
All right. That's great. Yeah. And I imagine that was opinion-y and editorial-ish.
No, it was very much
newsy?
No, it was traditional reporting.
Okay.
Very
all right.
Just reporting heavy. I went to a place, I talked to people, wrote a story, kind of like narrative nonfiction. Yeah.
And if our reporters won't do the reporting, who will? That's what I'd like to know.
Yes.
Sora 2 was really interesting, but to me, the more interesting thing was the fake TikTok. Did you look into that angle of it? They're trying to do a social network.
Yeah, exactly. I did write a news article about how OpenAI, or Sam Altman, admitted the whole thing is just him trying to make money, which is why it's not a good product, is it's not coming from the right place. Like they're just very clearly trying to monetize any corner of their business that they have. So yeah, it's an AI generated video feed and it's a TikTok style. You just keep swiping for more AI generated content. So it does not appeal to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what I wrote about was the larger issue. And I've touched on this in my newsletter, but then I wrote a more fleshed out piece for Computer World, which is the super trend of companies. I literally think it's the trend of the decade or even the century, which is where companies have found a place to make money, which is to supersede or replace your relationships, your friends, your family, your pets with AI and AI robots. And they just sort of get in there between and say, you don't need the real thing, we'll give you the fake thing. And this is a perfect example. So TikTok is toxic, to be sure, right? But at least when you're on TikTok, you're saying, okay, well, here's somebody in Senegal, like sharing their experiences and what it looks like and what they're doing. They're doing a little skit or whatever. And then you swipe. And then here's a person in Madrid who's doing some kind of thing. And you're actually seeing through another person's camera, you're seeing what they're seeing, their environment, you're seeing them, real people at least, right? What he's proposing is like, oh, here's one thing our product can do. Okay, here's another thing our product can do. Here's another thing our product can do. And this is supposed to replace the world, literally the world of actual human people and their experiences. And this is a larger trend. Everything from that little Tribble robot thing, which is supposed to replace your pet, to the social networks where everybody else, you're an influencer because everybody else is a bot, or the ones where you talk, character AI, where you have a relationship, you have this romantic relationship, whatever, or friendship with the bot. So all of these things and many more are sort of conspiring into a super trend that people are not looking at it that way. Like they're not seeing that this is what's happening little by little. They're chipping away at your actual human relationship, hijacking your natural desire to have connections with people and enter into these mutually beneficial relationships. And it's just you're enjoying your side of the mutual relationship, but there's nothing on and nobody on the other side. And that's the trend that I wrote about.
Great. Well said. And Meta also debuted its own version, which it's almost a parody of itself. They're calling it Vibes. That's the best name they could come up with. And that guy, Meta's been doing these $100 million, $200 million pay packages for AI executives. And one of them, this guy's name is Alexander Wang. I know that's a designer, but he's not a designer.
Yes.
He founded a company called Scale. He's young, maybe in his 20s. So he has a rumored $150 million pay package. And he posted, one of his kind of big posts since coming to Meta. Oh, we debuted Vibes, an AI generated video feed. And it's like, dude, that is the best. You're getting paid $150 million for that? Is that even a real sentence that I'm saying? The absurdity is through the roof, really.
Nobody associated with Mark Zuckerberg should ever use the V word, because Mark Zuckerberg has always tossed off a really creepy robotic vibe, right? Don't start thinking about vibes and what kind of vibes things give off, because Mark Zuckerberg is, I'm not accusing him of anything in this moment of anything specific. That's for other episodes. But he just has this sort of like not really connecting to human kind of vibe.
Totally, yeah. Actually, that's another thing I did this week. I moderated a panel on brain implants, which is actually a big topic in New York City. There are a lot of med tech, a lot of the main Neuralink competitor is in New York. And one of the guys on my panel was from, and one of the guys from my panel works at Meta, and he was a key person who developed the neural band for the new glasses. So he was on that whole project.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was super cool. His name's Dan Wetmore. And so he was wearing it to the conference, and it was interesting because there's a whole debate in all these doctors who drill into people's brains and they do brain implants. They have this whole debate on, should it be like Neuralink, which is really invasive. A robot drills into your skull and implants it. And actually one of the guys who does the Neuralink implant, one of the guys who does the Neuralink surgeries at the Barrow Institute, he was there. He looked like a supervillain. I just was cracking up at this guy. He looked like, the way was it William Dafoe looks as the Green Goblin in not Harry Potter, of course, in the Spider-Man. He had a very, very similar vibe, like a gaunt, thin face and white hair slicked back and a suit. And I was like, dude, you are really straight out of something. I don't know what. But anyway, so that's minimally invasive. Then that's invasive. Minimally is they go through a vein and they put it near your brain. And then this Meta guy was like, well, I'm not doing either. So we're doing something else. We're like detecting other biological signals. We're connected to tech in other ways. So I gave him a lot of shit about the demo with Mark Zuckerberg. And he did not like that. But he was a chill guy. He was like, we checked our logs. It was not the neural band. And he did not like that the demo did not go well because he thinks it's actually truly innovative. And I think I agree. I don't know if you've had more thoughts on that.
Well, the thing with brain implants, and it's so I guess the category is brain computer interfaces, right? So
correct.
It's interesting that the different companies and different technologies are very, very different from each other. There's a bunch of ways to approach it. They sort of have it. What bothers me about the whole industry is that they pretend like disabled people. This will enable people who with limited motor or no motor ability to be able to control things and to get around. And nobody can argue with that. Like that, this is sort of their ace, right? Because nobody can argue with the idea of having somebody be able to control prosthetic limbs or be able to move around with an exoskeleton in ways they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. We all want that. But we all know that what they're really, the end game is not that limited market for accessibility. They want the mainstream market. We know they do. And so what they're really thinking is that by the time they have the technology to do this as just a standard commercial thing for fully able people, they're hoping that we will have been uh, so sort of brainwashed, for lack of a better term, or we've
Conditioned.
adjusted ourselves, conditioned, thank you,
Mhm.
so much to the point where we'd be like, yeah, sign me up. That's going to be way more convenient to control my iPhone or whatever,
Yes.
my virtual reality glasses or whatever. So sign me up. Let's all do this in by the tens of millions of people doing it. And just kind of, I just feel like the proposition is a bit dishonest right now.
Mhm.
They're happy to fall back on we're going to help the disabled view, but really, this is not the money going to it is not for the disabled market. This is a mainstream play, and they're hoping that in 10 years, this will replace AI glasses.
There was a very interesting moment on that note at this column, which was otherwise slightly sleepy. I mean, it was in the College of Medicine, American Academy of Medicine. It was a beautiful Greek Roman style building in New York with gorgeous parks outside. Had looked like we were in an academic building in Europe. It was just stunning, and it was full of these very smart people. So, they try to be a lot of caveats when they speak. Kind of bend over backwards to get anything out because they're just so precise and technical. But there was a moment when I was in the crowd and I looked up from my phone abruptly because the guy who leads the Neuralink competitor, Synchron, who I have interviewed and did a big piece on him, and he talked about what you're saying and was more open to that conversation. He was on a panel with a Bloomberg reporter who was asking about widespread commercialization. And at one point, this guy, Tom, just goes, the Bloomberg reporter asked him a question. He goes, well, I don't know if that's really the right question. Is that a good question, you think? And I was like, holy shit, what? Like, we're fighting on stage now? And basically, this
Yeah.
Bloomberg reporter, Ike, had asked about widespread commercialization. And this guy, Tom, went on, it seemed like a passionate rant about how we don't need to let Elon Musk's and Neuralink drag down the conversation to everything is about everyone's going to have brain implants. And he was like, that is not the right conversation. That's not what anybody in this room is doing. That's a distraction. That's just a way to communicate the promise, but that's not what anyone here should be focusing on. He really got mad about it and started a fight on stage. And that's how I figured out that one supervillain has done the implants because he goes, I forget, we'll just call that guy supervillain. He just goes, who's on the panel? He goes, supervillain, would you ever implant a Neuralink implant into an otherwise healthy person? And supervillain just goes, no, absolutely not. And so he was trying to make a point that that's not what they're doing right now. But at the same time, he told me that he does want to make them available for anyone to buy in 2040. So I don't know.
So I'm going to call. So here's how to call bullshit on supervillain. It doesn't matter what he says because in panels 10 years before something has commercial viability, the people they talk to are the visionaries, the people who are their engineers or designers, or they're the CEOs of companies that are doing early work. And those are the people who are doing it because they're passionate about it. They probably believe that it will never be a commercial viability. Between now and then, they're going to raise billions of dollars. And the people who are investing are going to want to maximize their returns, and they're going to push and push and push. And basically, at the end of the day, they're going to say, "Listen, we own this shit, not you. So we're going to push this in a mass market." So it doesn't matter what visionaries are saying today. What matters is what the money is saying in 10 years. And so that's what drives all this stuff. If this thing becomes something that dangles an incentive of riches, they're going to go for the money. I mean,
Right.
is
As
it
long as they have legal
anything more
approval.
obvious?
They have to have legal
Right,
approval from the FDA. So the whole path that we're talking about relies on what the FDA thinks. So
right.
that's the main
And
accountability
look at
mechanism.
today's FDA. Who
Yes.
knows what
Yes.
tomorrow's FDA will be?
Right. Right. So
The
that
whole
was
the
that.
whole the whole of the government right now is just there to scratch the backs of their fellow billionaires. So
Oh, yeah, they don't believe in
we can't rely
governing.
on that either.
We can link it back to OpenAI,
Even if
though.
we have this great even if we have this great government, a great FDA that won't approve certain things, well,
Hmm.
that's just one country that represents 4% of the world's population. The rest of the world, may make a different choice.
That's true,
It's
but we
coming,
are
folks, and we got to say
we're
no.
super far ahead on brain implants in the US, really light years ahead of anybody. OpenAI has invested, I don't know if it's Sam Altman or OpenAI, because, he's Mr. Conflict of Interest, but He has invested in a brain implant company, rumored, called Merge Labs. You know, the whole idea of the singularity where we're going to merge with machines. So it's called Merge Labs for
Hmm.
that reason, because with a brain implant,
Yeah.
of course, you have merged with a machine. It's in your body, it's reading your thoughts. So I talked about this with some of the guys on my panel. One was from Meta, one was who I just talked about, one was from NVIDIA, and one was from Google. So they're all tech industry working on implants, and then they're not making implants, but they're doing a lot of data processing. And so like NVIDIA has a partnership with Synchron where they're taking data from people's brains, which is really electrical signals, and they're trying to decode it, figure out what are they thinking, move it from a beep and a boop to a character, a word where they can say hi. So OpenAI is doing this. And I guess what all these guys thought, and what seems obvious to me, is that OpenAI is trying to A, become a Neuralink, but B, have a long-term strategy, because they think what you're saying, that it will be long-term, and they don't want to be caught flat-footed because these technologies are so complex. They take decades to figure out how they're going to work. No, there is not one brain implant on the market today. They're all pre-approval from the FDA. There are less than 100 in people's heads, maybe over 100, but that's it. I mean, Neuralink has 12, Synchron has 10, and they're the leaders. So he thinks, I think, is going to be the long term if he's investing in it, to your point. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't really want. Last thing I want is Sam Altman in my brain. I mean, that I don't. He's making Sora today. He wants to make a brain implant tomorrow. I mean, it's just such a stretch.
Yeah. And it's exactly what you said. They don't want to be caught flat-footed, and they have to work on these things far, far in advance. And OpenAI has a lot of investors to satisfy. They've
A lot.
borrowed so much money. And so they're monetizing the crap out of AI chatbots, but that's only going to go so far. They're going to need to be at the leading edge. And of course, they have great AI. So that's a huge advantage for any sort of thing like this. And I also think, just to be slightly more positive about this human computer interface future that we are looking at, there are going to be many options that are going to be non-invasive, that don't involve
Mm-hmm.
surgery. They just involve a helmet or glasses or some kind of device that you clip onto your head or whatever. And in fact, one of the interesting things about the science fiction depiction of this, and this is all science fiction until we make it real, is Apple TV Plus, Apple Plus, or whatever it's called, TV Plus, is working on a Neuromancer. And in Neuromancer, in the novel from the 70s, the virtual reality interface was essentially a non-invasive human computer interface. And it wasn't just goggles. There was a certain degree of interaction between the brain and the we'll see if they jump on that trend. That might be very interesting, to
Could
see
be.
if they get that right. It'll be difficult because they're going to try to go somewhere between what the novel did and what exists today, probably. So we'll see what they do there, but
We'll
we
see.
will. I mean, we already do, kind of, to a certain extent. And of course, what's interesting is that companies like mule-footed companies like OpenAI think they're going to do this interface that's going to give you like omniscience,
Yes.
but more subtle user experience and more humane, for lack of a better term. Companies like Apple, we use it for, hopefully, one thing I want them to use it for is, when your AirPods are paired technically to three devices, and one device has been in the closet for 6 months and the other device has been
Yes.
turned off for
I
like two
hate
weeks, and
my
then you
whole
have your
life in
iPhone
that
and it
situation.
pairs to the other two. It
It's
doesn't know
horrible.
you're in the settings trying to. Hopefully, it'll feel your intent through your brain skull and pair with the device you're trying to pair it with.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd like to see that.
Yeah. So Apple actually had a major brain implant update of the year, which is they created a standard Bluetooth connection between their products and brain implants. So they can detect a Mac, an iPad, or a Vision Pro, or an iPhone can all detect a brain implant through a Bluetooth connection as if it was a keyboard, as if it was a mouse. So it's a peripheral device. And if a brain implant company, Synchron's the only one who's done it yet, if they have developed this, met the specs with the engineering, their patients can, send texts by thinking. They can use these consumer devices, which is a huge breakthrough for people with, medical issues. If you can only use your brain implant on some kind of weird, ugly, medical, chunky, bulky tablet in your living room, you can do things. You're less bored, but you're a little isolated. If now you're sending iMessages, your blue bubbles are popping up through this connection. Like I was texting with that guy Noland, who's the first one who has the Neuralink. I'm just texting with him and it's, blue bubbles, emojis, and he's doing it with his brain. I mean, it's crazy. You can actually
Wow,
do
that
that
is crazy.
now. Yeah, and he answered with his brain, and it's just really changed his life. And I think for people who do are locked in their bodies, no movement at all. I mean, that's an incredible use case. So I do think that's currently the focus, but that's about where the tech is now.
So if you had them and you were both using that technology, that's telepathy.
Yeah, it is, but it's
You could
it's
sit there
actually not
in
that
a
good right
meeting
now.
and think thoughts at another person in the meeting, and they can think thoughts back at you, and you could
Not yet. Not
that's,
yet.
but it's
Actually,
coming.
everyone, yeah, they think, but sounds like the data really is not where it needs to be. It's really actually far. Like the Meta guy, he's able to do something that Neuralink cannot with this dorky little neural band, which is like a slap bracelet, basically. So they can do something where if someone's wearing it and they pretend they're writing on a desk, HI, like they pretend they're holding a pencil and they write H, they write I, it will appear in the text box as hi in their glasses. And that's amazing. And that's something that I did talk to the same Neuralink guy about. He was like, yeah, Neuralink tested that, or I would think I was writing HI. I would imagine myself holding a pencil, imagine, going down the stem of the H, coming up, curving around. And so he would think, because he got paralyzed through a diving accident, so he could at one point write. So he'd have to recall the memory of writing, and then it would input the text. And they struggled with that, and they stopped the trial. So in that case, you can see how, I mean, with this dorky little neural band thing, they're able to do something the brain implant is not. So I think there really are a lot of challenges still with brain implants. And it's interesting Meta is doing kind of like an intermediate step.
You say that the wrist thing is dorky, but a wrist is a kind of a place where you can be almost as dorky as you want to be. It doesn't matter. It's just your wrist. You have to be careful on the face. You don't want, as Google
Right.
found out with Google Glass, you don't want this weird contraption on your face when people are looking at you. But on the wrist, like, who cares? Like, it shouldn't be too bulky. You don't want to
It's
take out
thin.
small children. Yeah,
It looks
exactly.
pretty
So
good.
it's
It's just,
thin
it's
and
not stylish. It's just not. I mean, we talked about this the last time, but
yeah,
you're not going to go
it
out,
could
you're
be
not going to
made
wear it to
stylish.
prom.
Clearly, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're not
Well,
going to wear
unless
I mean,
unless
who
you go by
knows?
yourself.
Yeah. But okay, so actually my other topic for today, if you're done with are you done with brain implants?
Sure. Yeah. Yes, for sure. Than to say that I would love your prediction about when the first fully abled person gets it just because they want
Mm.
to be able to send text without whatever. When do you think? 1 year, 5 years? Like, what are you thinking after talking to these people?
Well, they're thinking that FDA approval could come early, but I think that will only be for people with a medical need. So I would guess that first of all, Neuralink would be the first one just to prove their point. And it would probably have little functionality, and they would do what Elon Musk does with Teslas. They'd find a fanboy on Twitter to implant who will just shout from the rooftops about how amazing it is and never talk about any technical issue. So he'd probably do the same approach there as soon as he could, and maybe 2038, let's say that.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So that's 13 years ish.
Mm-hmm. Let's
Okay.
say that. Yeah.
Well, good. Good. I can relax then and don't have to worry about
Yeah.
somebody
No,
sneaking
you
up
don't.
behind me and drilling into my head.
Right now we're just we're just looking at the chess players are moving, and we're capturing it early, and we're seeing what companies are doing what. They're not talking about it that much, but they are circling the wagons like OpenAI investing in this company. So we're just keeping an eye on them because, as you said, it's a very important space. There's a lot of privacy issues. I mean, free will, what is it if these companies are, in your mind, reading your thoughts and maybe predicting thoughts, maybe suggesting actions for you. And there's so many ethical questions. So it's going to take a really long time to figure that out.
Yeah. And I also think we should remind everyone, because it's easy to lose the plot with how fast things are moving. But really, Sam Altman's main contribution to technology was to seize the reins of a company which was founded and exists because a few people, including Elon Musk, wanted to create an ethical AI company that was not for profit, it was going to do ethical AI, it was going to do all this kind of stuff. And he grabbed the reins and turned it into the opposite of that. Not necessarily unethical, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but very aggressive at making a profit, very aggressive at raising money. OpenAI was not supposed to be that company. It was supposed to be the alternative to that kind of company. So when we talk about them wanting to do brain implants and stuff like that, it's good to remember that this is all Sam Altman. This is not what the company was supposed to be doing.
Right. Right. That's probably why I was like, oh, was it OpenAI or Sam Altman? That's why he invested in this Merge Labs, I think, and certainly did not make an announcement under OpenAI because he would think it would freak people out. But something I learned about OpenAI this week is that they do actually make a lot of money. So they're making billions of dollars in revenue. I mean, it's still in the single digits. I think they're on track for 4 or 5 billion this year, which is a lot more than I thought. I mean, they're not profitable.
Yeah.
They won't be profitable till they make, according to Bloomberg, 129 billion, which is like, what? That's just insane. But did you know they make money?
It's an expensive company to run, so that's a problem.
Yeah. Did you know that
it's going to be a long time of enshittification before they're catch up to the money that they have to raise.
But the thing that's interesting is the projection in Bloomberg was that they would make 129 billion by 2029. So has there ever been a company in history that's gone from 4 billion and then in 4 years made it 9 billion? I don't think so. I think I'm just going to call bullshit on that. That doesn't make any sense.
All the numbers are just completely out of whack from what they used to be. So comparing the past to the present is kind of already gamed. I mean, it's easy to remember when Facebook, back when Meta was called Facebook, bought Instagram, or was it WhatsApp? One of them, I think it was WhatsApp, for $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one of them, there was $1 billion. And when they paid $1 billion, people were like, oh my gosh, $1 billion. That's insane. And nowadays, that's lunch money for these companies.
Well, that's the other thing you missed this week is the latest news cycle about AI is that it's a bubble, all the numbers don't make sense. And I don't know how a bubble is defined, but to me, it's just people are looking for something to write about because they're seeing huge business deals. They're not seeing really super compelling products yet. So they're just like, this has got to collapse, right? So I was actually curious your thoughts on the .com bubble, which you may have covered at the time. It's like, what made it a bubble and why did it pop?
So people like to talk about the bubble as if there's an industry that makes a thing, and then when the bubble pops, then there won't be the thing anymore. And that is not what this is. That's not what a bubble is. That's not what the .com bursting bubble was all about.
We still have the internet.
Business. Yeah, it's a business thing. Yeah, but the .com bubble, the reason it's called the .com bubble is that for the first time in the when was it, the late 90s, there were all these companies that were emerging where you could buy things on the internet. And this was a kind of a novel idea back then. And we had companies like pets.com, and there was companies that would deliver your groceries to you and, every kind of thing like that. And most of them went out of business. They basically and in fact, I was working for a startup called Portable Life at that time. And our whole thing went belly up simply because our backer, our investor, from whom, it was a till that we intended to go back to, they just lost so much money on their other investments that they were just like, the whole thing is going south. But basically, yeah, so a bubble is basically where many of the major players, or most of the major players in a new category, essentially go out of business. And it really doesn't matter from the consumer point of view. AI is not going anywhere. If you look at the .com bubble, it crashed, right? But where are we buying stuff? We're buying stuff online. So e-commerce is alive and well and doing better than ever, right? Mm-hmm. And so it really doesn't matter from the user or consumer perspective whether there's a crash. It does matter for the economy. I think that it was Cory Doctorow who said very eloquently that a third of the stock market is tied up in 7 AI companies that have no way to become profitable, in his view. And
AI, just tech companies, the big tech companies, right?
Yes.
Now we're calling them AI companies.
He is. I mean, he has a way of exaggerating
that's
for effect.
Right. I mean,
a perfect comparison is OpenAI and Google. Okay. So OpenAI is an AI company. Google has AI. Right. But you could wipe out Google's AI business and they'd still be Google. You'd still be suffering through Gmail. So
I like Gmail. I don't, it works for me.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I am so dependent. I have hundreds of filters that keep the dreck at bay, and if I were to open those floodgates, I would just be buried under God knows what. But if you look at the stock market in general, everyone will tell you, "Oh, the stock market's been great, even when Trump came into office, even with the tariffs, the stock market's just been kicking ass." Well, that's not really true, actually. There's the there's a one digit number of technology companies
Hmm.
that have been absolutely killing it. And everybody else has been kind of, farting along and just having no like success really at all. And many of them have been in decline. So if you remove the magnificent seven, they call them, the big tech companies,
Hmm.
and look at the stock market, it sucks.
Yep.
It's been sucking for a few years. And so basically his point is that, when the bubble bursts, it's going to be bad for some investors and it's going to be bad for the economy in general. And I
Right.
think that's a reasonable prediction. I don't know if it's going to be true or not, but it's a reasonable
Yeah.
prediction. It's just so hard to see how they're going to make their money.
That's helpful. I'm still formulating my opinion on this. Just I'm not sure if we have historical precedent for this situation because unlike in the dot-com era, these were new companies. Now we're talking about the biggest companies in the world with huge wallets, too big to fail, so many investments. You don't even know how many safety nets they have. I mean, from real estate to who knows? I mean, they have their tentacles everywhere. Find it hard to believe that they wouldn't find a way to repurpose this investment money as the business changes. And I don't see them going out of business. I just don't really see it.
Yeah, and it's also important to remember how many times these companies pivot or they sort of add a whole new
Yeah.
thing, right? If you look at
They're already doing
Amazon,
that. Like
Amazon
I
was like
talked about with
selling books, right?
yeah. Well, Amazon this week, like with I talked about they're not talking about AI anymore. They're back to hardware and they're doing a new thing and Apple did it. I mean, they've already pivoted at least once in a major way since ChatGPT came out.
For sure. And if you look at both Amazon and Microsoft, the amount of money they're making from cloud services, the cloud
Mhm.
storage, in the cloud is just astronomical. If you look at all kind, look at Google. There was a point in time, it's impossible to imagine now, when somebody came to Sergey and Larry and said, "Hey, you know what we should do? We should have advertising." And they're like, "Are you crazy? We're not an ad company." Now this is their whole business, in the consumer side. And so these companies have this at some point they're too big to fail and they will be able to pivot in any direction they want. For me, the biggest tragedy with the AI bubble or boom is that the investment is all going to AI. You used to go to Product Hunt and other companies like other sites like that would keep track of startups and things like that. And there used to be all kinds of stuff, and most of it was just copycat stuff that already existed. Some of it was really interesting. And nowadays is AI this, AI that, and the companies integrating ChatGPT using these APIs and so on. It's just so boring. And there's so
Mhm.
many other areas of technology that are being neglected by funders, by users, by everybody, while everybody's all hyped up about AI. And AI is really interesting. It's very powerful, but it shouldn't be everything. I mean, we should have
Mhm.
a balanced ecosystem of all kinds of innovation and all kinds of technologies and all kinds of different things that people of the kind people used to work on. And so now it's just a kind of I don't want people to lose their shirts, but I also would kind of like the bubble to burst. I think it would be kind of nice if investors started looking around at not only who's going to like make them a killing in AI, but who's going to do something that nobody's thought of.
Right.
And
Yeah, I love that.
so that's
And
what I
maybe
think.
people would start hiring again because the jobs reports are in the toilet. I mean, and I think AI, Jerome Powell said it's not the entire reason that he's seeing a weak economy, but it is part of the reason, especially for recent grads. So we are seeing that companies are not hiring as much because they're trying to figure out this AI thing. They're trying to figure out this tariff thing. So really, it's not, the economy is good if you're invested, which everybody should do in any capacity you can because you should be getting a piece of this. But the employment is not in a good spot. I mean, have you been seeing the numbers? It's really terrible.
Yes, and I also think that has very little to do with AI. So one of the things
Really?
that's happening, yes, for sure. Yes, there is a recent report, and I'm sorry I don't have it at my fingertips, but they're finding that AI has actually directly had almost no effect on the job market. And what's really happening is inflation, is tariffs, is all the uncertainty that the Trump administration is creating is causing companies to be like not really
Yes.
know where to invest and all that kind of stuff. But what companies are doing is they're trying to, when you say companies believe something or companies say something, you're talking about the leadership and sometimes just the CEO who believes something or says something. And so CEOs who have massive salaries to protect are not going to go and say, we failed. We got to lay off a bunch of people. Nowadays, they can say, we're getting so efficient with AI that we don't need all these employees. Like it's a new
Hmm.
story they're telling. It's AI is a scapegoat, taking the attention off of failure of the economy, of the political system, and of their companies. And they're just saying, well, AI, we're having all this efficiency. And you can say that because, of course, people are using AI, right? And so I just think there's a lot of baloney around this, and there's a deliberately crafted delusion around this. The government doesn't
Mm.
want to say there's failure; they want to say there's AI efficiencies, and businesses want to say the same thing. So I think that when the dust settles on this moment, when you look at the job market, I think the jobs are being caused by
Mm.
all the other bullshit that's going on, and not so much by AI.
I think that I thought it was telling that he said it had at least any role at all because it is so early. I think that companies are maybe in a period where they're trying to replace people with AI and it's not working that well. I don't think these companies are failing. I think Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, I mean, all of their earnings reports are excellent, but they are still laying people off. I think they're trying to find ways to save money as they're investing in data centers and new technologies. They're basically foregoing humans for research and development, which is very expensive. So I think that's what's happening on a micro level in terms of what might actually get people hired. I mean, there are fewer customer service jobs or there are industries that are being slightly automated. I don't know if he's talking about that or the traditional white collar jobs. We have seen some AI driven layoffs in journalism. I don't know. I think it's very early, but I think it's worth watching. I don't think it's necessarily a delusion that has no value.
Companies' stock prices and companies' valuations are not based on reality. They're based on people's beliefs. And something that I think is underappreciated about our current era was back in the day when you were trading, pork belly futures and all this other kind of stuff. Like when investors were investing in things that were more knowable, right? So price of coffee, right? So you could sort of figure out what that might be. And if you're an investor, if you're somebody who trades, one of the things you have to know is you have to know everything about
Yes.
everything, right? That you're trading in, and that knowledge, that intelligence is what enables you to be successful at your job. We're in an era where AI is so fueled by investment and like partnerships and all this kind of stuff. And there's so much money involved. And there's so many people say, wow, it's going to just change everything. It's going to change the world. And whoever is in control of this world changing technology is going to rule the world because they're going to be so rich. We're going to generate trillionaires and all this kind of stuff. And nobody wants to miss out on that. That's the information that the people who control buying and selling of stocks and so on are dealing with. To a certain extent, it doesn't matter what happens materially. What their expertise has to be is in what people believe will happen, right? And this is part of the bubbleiciousness of this whole thing, right? Because it's like everybody's caught up in the same set of
Right.
beliefs about this world-changing technology and how it's going to replace all these people, and it's going to be winners and losers. You don't want to be a loser; you want to be a winner, and all this kind of stuff. And I just think people have to take that with a grain of salt. They don't know what they're talking about. The PhDs who create these technologies don't know even how it works. They certainly don't know what it's going to do in the future in the world. And so you got to take all this stuff with a grain of salt. And I think that at some point, the people who are, somebody has to take a broader view and say that, like, ultimately, you need consumers and buyers and people with money paying for things in order for people to make bank on any of this stuff. And if everybody's out of work, then that's not gonna work out very well.
Yes, I agree. I'm just saying if you look at the earnings reports, which I'm one of the weird people that has to do that, they are making money. It's not the stock is perception, of course. I'm saying that they're not failing. They're making money, a lot, a huge amount of money, and they're in the green.
Yes,
So
but
that's all
follow the
I'm.
money, right? So
What?
follow the money. So they're making money because they're making big deals with big companies who
No, they're
are,
they're selling services through the cloud. They're selling
yes,
Microsoft
yes,
whatever subscriptions. Like they have businesses going that is not AI. The
yes,
question
yes.
is all this money they're putting in AI going to have any return? And that is not happening so far. Except for I don't know, OpenAI is
They're
making
selling those
$5 billion.
services. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
selling those services based on promises that have not been realized, right? They're
No,
saying,
they're
okay,
selling those
we're
services.
going to put.
No, they're selling AWS to companies that are using it now today.
Yeah, yeah, AWS, but I'm talking about
Yeah,
AI, right? So if you go in with this AI solution to some gigantic company, if you go to I don't know, a car company or something like that, and say we're going to put this tool on everybody's desk, and it's going to cost you $25 per employee, and we're going to put it on the desktops of 150,000 employees. Okay, so now you've made this big deal. Your quarterly stock price looks amazing, but are those employees going to actually get the promised efficiencies that we don't know? Like we absolutely
exactly.
don't know.
Yes,
So that's the
exactly.
unknown part, right? So, and that's part of that may be part of the bubble thing. So we know that the companies are believing the pitch and
Right.
paying the price, and that's boosting the stock markets. But we don't know if that pitch is going to be realized in the real world.
I agree. Yes. I think the stock market and the actuals of what's happening at the company is what I'm separating. Like that's why I reacted to that guy saying they're AI companies. They're not. They're working on AI. Yes, they have massive existing businesses in other directions, and that's the only point I'm making, and that's why I am skeptical that they're ripe for a full bubble pop. I think maybe they have several bubbles going. I mean, they're just these massive corporations. They're so big to reduce. Maybe they want to be reduced to AI to help their stock right now, but that's not actually the reality. They've barely even figured out how to make money out of that. I mean, they've been doing AI in different forms for a while. I don't know. It's nuanced. I don't know. Maybe it's easier to just say they're AI companies and the bubble's going to pop, but I think there's more going on than that.
And it also has to be said that NVIDIA is not like OpenAI. NVIDIA is selling hardware and they're also selling software, but NVIDIA's products are doing what they're supposed to do right away. Like you buy
Yeah,
you
that's true.
buy 50,000 NVIDIA chips and have this big data center, and that's all working away, churning away, doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah,
The
and the
software,
Nvidia.
we don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why they even want to do anything more than what they're doing. They're so successful. But the NVIDIA guy on my panel reminded me of what NVIDIA's vision is, which is to, as they're saying, physical AI, so robots. So they think that robots are the future, which is different than chatbots. Bot.
See, NVIDIA thinks everything is the future because they really have their hands in everything. For example, there are some people, yours truly, who believe that the humanoid robot revolution is a bunch of crap and is not going to turn out like everybody thinks, and they're not going to join society like Elon Musk says. They're not going to push an old lawnmower around and babysit your kids like Elon Musk says. They're kind of dumb. And have very limited
Mm-hmm.
uses to have a robot whose physical embodiment resembles a Paleolithic ape, right? So there are many other form factors for a robot, and I believe in robotics. I believe in robotic lawnmower. Like we're in Italy, leading robotic lawnmower companies are Italian.
What?
Yes, Toro, for example, is a giant in the robotic lawnmower industry. And so in Italy, in the Prosecco Hills, which is where I've just spent all this time with a bunch of lovely people drinking incredible wine and eating spectacular food. You
Getting
look
drunk and
around and
mowing
it's
the
just so
lawn?
green. All the lawns are mowed with robots, all of them. It's crazy. You see these things running around everywhere. But again, it's an Italian thing. So there are many people who think, no, it's going to be humanoid robots doing everything. Or no, it's not going to be humanoid robots. Everything will be robotic. NVIDIA says, yeah, all of it. We have a solution for all of it. When you get to physical AI is actually really an interesting proposition from a software point of view, because when they talk about physical AI, they're talking about essentially virtual reality that has physics in it, right? So things have weight and inertia and friction and all these properties that are built into digital twin technologies. So you can build an exact replica of an airplane down to every single part, where every single part, the version of every single part, is replicated digitally in the twin. And then what you can do is you can basically run simulations with the twin, find out what happens, and then you can fix things in the real plane.
That's my
Same
least
thing with
favorite
factories.
jargon, by the way. Digital twin. I hate it.
Physical AI,
No,
digital
digital
twin.
twin.
Well,
Horrible.
well,
Horrible.
I hate it too because people misuse it. So sometimes when people say digital twin, what they mean is a person, right? They mean a avatar based AI thing that's your
Hmm.
digital twin. I don't care for that particular thing, but the idea of a digital twin of a process or machinery or a factory or whatever, that's, I mean, maybe there's a better phrase than digital twin, but that's really what physical AI,
Yeah.
what's it called? Omniverse, I think it's called, NVIDIA's physical AI digital twin technology. And so
Right.
that's the other part of NVIDIA that a lot of people don't appreciate. They're a software powerhouse. They do all kinds of crazy software, and they're super advanced in their thinking about how much money you could potentially make by creating robot training platforms that are virtual, right?
Hmm.
To train a robot in the real world is just super expensive and time consuming. But you can do it at high speed in virtual spaces, and then all the learning takes place in that virtual space, and then you just transfer the knowledge to the physical robot and it works, supposedly. So anyway, NVIDIA is a fascinating company.
It is. My sister-in-law texted me this week. She was like, "Do you want a Sora 2 code?" And I got access to Sora 2. And then she was like, "By the way, what do you think of it, Jensen Huang?" I have whatever. I barely used it. I don't really care that much about Sora 2. I'm so sorry. Don't tell my editor. She was like, "What do you think of Jensen Huang?" And I was like, "I actually have a lot of thoughts on that. I think he's very likable. You know, he really presents well. He talks a lot about the immigrant experience, how hard he worked coming, from Taiwan, and how he really, he did a college graduation speech and he wished hardship on the graduates to build character. But he also has a nice vibe to him. But at the same time,
Totally.
yeah, totally. He's great. But he also, I think, has a ruthless business side that shows. I mean, the way he just inserts himself in the controversy with China and the US and the chips. And then my colleague witnessed an unsavory interaction with him at CES. I think I talked about this on an early episode where he was giving a presentation at CES and there was an issue with his microphone and he publicly humiliated the sound guy in front of the whole audience in a really uncomfortable way. And I guess he was like, "What's your name?" And the guy was like, "Sebastian." And he was like, "I'm going to remember you, Sebastian. Like, everybody look at Sebastian." Like, it was like he was like shaming the sound guy in a super bully way. And then I see him smarming up to President Trump too, not directly calling out the H-1B thing, which is related to immigration and people like him would have, benefited from, and just kind of dancing and noodling around. Oh, it's, American manufacturing. So he's really likable, but I see the other side. Maybe there are two Jensen Huangs. So what do you think about him?
I think he's Gustavo Fring, right? He seems very like,
Yeah.
wants to make sure your fries and your fried chicken and all that stuff are perfect, and he'll do whatever you like, and he'll bust tables and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
behind the scenes, he's that killer.
Yeah.
He's also, you talked about his immigrant story, and I think that's another thing that positions NVIDIA well, because he presents as American. Like, Americans are like, yeah, he's a totally American like guy. He's like one of us. He knows all that stuff. In China, he's like, okay, this guy is Chinese, right? He's a Chinese person. And in Taiwan, he's freaking Elvis Presley. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the most popular,
Of
famous
course.
business person in Taiwan, because they're like, yeah, one of our guys is just ruling the world over there. So do you see that video of he's signing a woman's chest?
No, but that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yes. And he's like, I shouldn't be doing this. And anyway,
Yeah.
so he's an interesting guy, and you're really not going to have a company like that unless the person is just really behind the scenes
Yeah,
is
I
a
agree.
real killer.
But I think he does, at least he puts out good messages. And I find his narrative and his messages so much more compelling than Elon Musk or Sam Altman. Like, he's talking about real stuff, family, hard work. He's been vulnerable. He said, "I would not build NVIDIA again if I could go back, it just took too much from my life and it was too difficult and I would not recommend it. People don't talk like that. So I think he's, a ruthless killer in the background, but I think it's also okay to like him. So that was my response to her.
Yeah, maybe he's more like Walter White. He's fundamentally a good guy who had ruthless killerness thrust upon him.
What's the name
So
of
who knows?
an anti-hero? But yeah, is that it?
Anti-hero, yes.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I think that could be it.
Well, anyway, it's an interesting company, and I think that's a good place for us to wrap this up. Unless you have other exciting tidbits that I missed over the week.
No, I was gonna tell my story of
well,
going to a frame shop, but we'll do it next time. We'll do it when I get the frame back.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm looking forward to that. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the Super Intelligent Podcast with me, Mike Elgin, and my super intelligent co-host, Emily Forlini. We are so delighted you have made it this far through the podcast. And, hey, give us 5 stars. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.